Instead of slapping me, Chichi, maybe you should pray for forgiveness and ask God to bless you with a womb, since you don't have one anymore. In a moment of fury, Jumoke slapped Chichi hard twice. Chichi staggered back, shocked, but quickly lunged at Jumoke. The two women grappled with each other, shouting angrily. People around them began to shout and try to pull them apart, asking why Chichi would fight a pregnant woman. In the dim light of Jumoke's room, Mr. Afolabi sat across from his daughter, regret evident on his face. "Jumoke," he began, his voice heavy. "I know I've let you down in so many ways. I wasn't there when you needed me. I have made so many mistakes, but I want to make things right. I want to be the father you deserve." Jumoke softened, placing a hand on his. "Dad, thank you for saying that. I have carried a lot of pains, but I don't want to live in the past. Let's focus on the future." Mr. Afolabi smiled faintly, squeezing her hands. He promised to do better. The next morning, Michael took Jumoke to the hospital for antenatal registration. As they walked through the hall, his protective nature gave her a rare sense of security. Back at Mrs. Gladys' house, Mr. Afolabi and Mrs. Gladys sat in the living room. "She's been through so much," Mrs. Gladys said softly. "I just hope you will be there for her this time." "You are right," Mr. Afolabi replied. "I haven't been the father my children needed, but I'm going to change that. Thank you for everything, Gladys. You have been more than a mother to her, than I could have hoped for." Mrs. Gladys smiled warmly. "She will soon be my daughter-in-law. Family is family, Afolabi. I'm glad you are finally here for her." Later, Michael and Jumoke went to the supermarket. They laughed and chatted as they shopped, a welcome change from the darker times. Outside, as Jumoke carried bags to the car, a black vehicle screeched to a stop in front of her. Two men jumped out and dragged her inside. "Help! Somebody help me! Please help!" Jumoke screamed, struggling, but they overpowered her and sped off. Inside, Michael rushed out, alarmed by the commotion. A guard ran up to him. "Sir, a black car just took the lady you came with. We tried to stop them, but they sped off." Michael's heart sank. Which way did they go? "Did you see the license plates?" he asked. The guard shook his head. "No plates, sir." Michael's phone buzzed, a private number, and he answered. Hello?" A mocking voice came through. "Listen carefully. If you bring the police into this, you will regret it. Don't do anything stupid." Who are you? What do you want? Don't harm her. Don't harm her." The caller chuckled before hanging up. Michael froze. The warning echoed in his mind. The guard asked, "Should we call the police, sir?" Michael shook his head, panic and dread overwhelming him. He clenched his fists, desperately trying to think what to do next. He returned to Mrs. Gladys' house, his face paled and filled with dread. The door clicked shut behind his as Mrs. Gladys looked up, her expression hopeful. "Michael, where is Jumoke? I thought you both were going to the hospital," she asked. Michael hesitated, his hands trembling. Jumoke, she's been kidnapped," he said. The word hung in the air, drawing gasps from everyone. "Kidnapped? How?" Mr. Afolabi demanded. "Michael, what happened?" Michael recounted the events, his shaking voice. We were at the supermarkets. After leaving the hospital, I stepped away briefly, and when I returned, some men had taken her. I tried to stop them, but they got away quickly." A heavy silence followed until David broke it. "This has to be Chichi. She's the only one who wants Jumoke gone." Everyone exchanged uneasy glances as David's words sank in. "Nothing can happen to my sister. God, please, not Jumoke," Iremide cried, her voice breaking. "We can't just sit here. We need to do something," Moju exclaimed, her face paled. Mrs. Gladys spoke firmly. "We need to call the police. This is beyond us." "No," Michael's sharp tone startled everyone. He steadied his voice. The kidnapper warned me not to involve the police. If we do, we might never see her again. The room felt silent, the weight of fear pressing on them. We can't lose her, Michael, Jumoke pleaded, tears streaming down his face. I will find her, Michael vowed, his voice resolute. I won't stop until she's safe. I promise. Without another word, he left, his mind racing with desperation. Driving through the dark streets, Michael eventually reached his home, where a faint light glowed inside. Chichi looked up as he entered, her face twisted in a mocking smile. Oh, look who is finally home, she sneered. I thought you'd never come back. Michael's anger fled. Chichi, where is Jumoke? Excuse me, how dare you accuse me? I don't know what you are talking about, Chichi said, trying to play innocence. Cut the act. You are the only one who hates her enough to do this, Michael snapped. Chichi's composure flattered for a moment before she regained it. You are crazy. I don't know anything about Jumoke's disappearance. Michael stepped closer, his voice low and threatening. Stop pretending, Chichi. Tell me where she is, or I will call the police. Chichi crossed her arms defiantly. Go ahead. What proof do you have? You can't accuse me without evidence. Michael's voice turned cold. David confessed you gave him something to spike Jumoke's drink. You have 24 hours to bring her back, or you will face the consequences. Though she maintained her defiant stance, a flicker of nervousness crossed Chichi's face. Michael turned and stormed out. His thoughts spiraled as he drove aimlessly through the night. Parking by the roadside, he gripped the steering wheel tightly. Where are you, Jumoke? Are you okay? Please stay safe. I will find you, he thought, his heart heavy with guilt and fear. Back at her home, Chichi paced nervously. Michael's accusation replayed in her mind. Finally, she picked up her phone and called Lolade. Chichi, Lolade answered, her voice light. I was wondering when you would call. How is everything? Michael was just here, Chichi replied, tension in her voice. He's accusing me of kidnapping Jumoke. Lolade chuckled, her tone cryptic. Relax, I have got a surprise for you. Come by tomorrow and you would see. A surprise? What is going on? Chichi asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. Trust me, be here first thing tomorrow morning and you would get it, Lolade said, her voice steady. Chichi hesitated, but curiosity flickered in her eyes. Alright, this better be worth it. Oh, it will be, Lolade assured her before the line went dead. Alone in the dark, a sinister smile spread across Chichi's face. Early the next morning, Chichi rushed to Lolade's house, filled with nervous energy and curiosity. She had barely slept, wondering what the surprise could be and hoping it would clear up Michael's suspicion and calm her fears. Lolade, what is the surprise you mentioned? I hardly slept last night, Chichi asked. Lolade gave her a sly smile, locked the door behind her, and mentioned for Chichi to follow. Come with me, Chichi. Let's go to the guest room. Chichi puzzled, but intrigued. She followed Lolade. They stopped at the guest room, and when Lolade opened the door, Chichi's eyes widened in shock. There, tied to a chair, was Jumoke, pale and exhausted, but still defiant. Lolade, how did you? Chichi asked, but Jumoke cut her off. So it was you all along, Chichi. I should have known you would go this far to get rid of me, Jumoke said. Chichi's shock quickly turned to anger. She stepped closer, her face twisted with contempt. Shut up, Jumoke. You always act like the victim, like you are so special. Despite her tiredness, Jumoke sat up, her voice calm but firm. I am not shutting up. Let me go now, or you will regret it when Michael finds out, Jumoke said, but Lolade laughed and crossed her arms, watching the scene unfold. Michael won't find you, Jumoke. Not now, not ever, Lolade said. You are wrong. He will find me because I'm carrying his child. The child you could never give him, Chichi. That is why you hate me so much, isn't got it," Jumoke said. For a moment, Chichi's confident expression flattered. Before she could respond, Lolade slapped Jumoke hard across the face, causing her head to snap sideways and blood to trickle from her nose. Jumoke didn't flinch. "You never know when to stay quiet, do you?" Lolade asked. Jumoke glared at Lolade and spat in her face. Lolade raised her hand to strike again, but Chichi stepped in. "Enough, Lolade. Tie her mouth and let's leave her here to think about her situation," Chichi said. Lolade grunted and tied a cloth over Jumoke's mouth, silencing her protests. They left the guest room and returned to the sitting room. "Lolade, we have to let her go. This is too risky. Michael is threatening me, and if he finds out," Chichi complained, but Lolade cut her off immediately. "We can't let her go now. She knows everything. The moment she's free, she will go straight to Michael and the police. The only way to silence her is permanently," Lolade said. Chichi recoiled, fear in her eyes. "You mean kill her?" "I didn't agree to this, Lolade," Chichi said. "What choice do we have? Tomorrow night, I will move her far away and take care of it. Don't worry, they have no evidence on us," Lolade said. Chichi hesitated but nodded reluctantly, intimidated by Lolade's resolve. Back at Michael's house, Michael sat alone, his mind racing. He had just finished a call with a trusted contact, a secret agent who was going to follow Chichi's movement. "I will send you a photo of my ex-fiancée Chichi and the address of our home. She's the main suspect in this case," Michael said. "Understood, sir. We will have updates on her movements by tonight," the agent said. "Also, I will send you a photo of Jumoke. She's the one who was kidnapped. Keep an eye on her and let me know immediately if you spot her," Michael said. "Copy that, sir. We will find her," the agent replied. Michael sent the agent both photos and as many details as he could. He was running out of time but was determined to find Jumoke. Back at Lolade's house, Chichi was nervous, glancing at Lolade. "Lolade, Michael knows where you live. We need to move Jumoke somewhere else, just in case." Lolade nodded, her face hard with determination. "I already have a plan. Tomorrow night, I'll move her far away and finish this. Don't worry, Chichi. Once Jumoke is gone, our problems are over," Lolade said. Chichi bit her lips, still fearful but reluctantly agreeing. "Relax, Chichi. As long as we stick to the plan, no one will find out," Lolade assured her. Back at Mrs. Gladys' house, Mr. Afolabi knelt by his bed, looking distraught. He prayed for his daughter, his voice shaking. "Oh, my beloved wife, where are you? Watched over our daughter, protect Jumoke and her child. I failed her once. Please don't let me fail her again. I want to make things right. Please keep her safe." Tears streamed down his face as he wiped them away, feeling overwhelmed with guilt. Mrs. Gladys, unable to stay calm, went straight to the police station without telling Michael. The police chief, Chief Adebayo, who had been a family friend for years. "Chief Adebayo, please, you have to understand. This isn't about Jumoke being kidnapped. It's about my family's peace and my son's future. Chichi is dangerous and we need to keep an eye on her. I'm sure she's behind this, and now she's threatening my son." Chief Adebayo leaned forward, considering her word carefully. "Mrs. Gladys, I understand, but I need solid proof before we can act. Has Michael given us any concretes? Anything that's linked Chichi to this?" Chief Adebayo asked. Mrs. Gladys took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. Chichi has always been possessive of Michael, even after the divorce. Now with Jumoke gone, it is too much of a coincidence. Michael confronted her, but she denied everything. But the way she acted when she came to confront Jumoke, I can tell she's hiding something. And now that Jumoke is gone, I'm sure she's involved. She even asked Jumoke's brother to poison her. Mrs. Gladys said. Chief Adebayo nodded slowly. "I see. I can't make any promises, but we can start watching her discreetly. I will assign someone to keep an eye on her and check for anything suspicious. If she's really behind this, we will need to catch her red-handed." Chief Adebayo said. Mrs. Gladys felt a bit relieved but tense. Thank you, Chief. Michael is already working with a private investigator, but we need all the help we can. Chichi has threatened him, and he's barely holding it together. If anything happens to Jumoke or the baby, I don't know how Michael will survive it. Chief Adebayo took a deep breath, his face serious. I will do what I can do. We will start looking into her activities and see what we can find. But this will take time, Chief Adebayo said. Mrs. Gladys nodded, her voice soft. I understand. I just want Jumoke back safe. She's family and she's carrying my grandchild. And Chichi is unpredictable. She always wanted Michael to herself and now she's willing to hurt him, Mrs. Gladys said. Chief Adebayo placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We will do everything we can. Just stay calm. Desperation can cause mistake and we don't want that. Let's handle this, he said. Mrs. Gladys gave a faint, grateful smile. Thank you, Chief. I trust you and the process, but please, don't let her slip through our fingers. She's dangerous and she already caused too much damage, Mrs. Gladys said. Understood. I will keep you updated, Chief Adebayo replied her. Mrs. Gladys stood up, clutching her purse tightly, and left the office, relieved but still fearful. She paused at the door, glancing back. Thank you, Chief. I know we are in good hands, she said. Chief Adebayo nodded, watching her leave as the weight of the situation settled in. He had a plan, and he was determined to uncover the truth and bring peace to the family. The next morning, Michael drove back to his marital home, determined and resolute. He had spent the night planning his next step, keeping a close eye on Chichi, his main suspect. He wasn't going to let her get away with whatever she was plotting. Stepping out of the car with his bags, he took a deep breath, preparing for the confrontation. He knew Chichi would be surprised, but not in a good way, especially after their argument the day before. Inside the living room, Chichi glanced up, raising an eyebrow, her shock evident before she quickly hid it. Oh, so you are back with all your things, Michael. I thought you'd forgotten about this house. What brings you back? Have you come to your senses after confronting me yesterday? Chichi said. She laughed mockingly, arms crossed, eyes filled with defiance and amusement. This house belongs to me, Chichi. I pay the rent. I will come back whenever I want. There is nothing you can do about it, Michael said. Chichi's smirk flattered, but she quickly recovered. Moving closer, she lowered her voice. We used to be in love, Michael, before Jumoke showed up and ruined everything. I really hope she's never found. It will be better for both of us if she just disappeared, Chichi said. Michael smiled faintly, almost amused. He saw through her false innocency. Stop pretending, Chichi. I know you are behind all this, and I won't let you get away with it. Whatever you are planning won't work. Jumoke will be found, safe and sound. Count on that, Michael said. Chichi's eyes narrowed, her anger showing. So now I'm the villain. After everything I've done for you, Michael, this is how you repay me, believing a woman who has done nothing but cause chaos in our lives. Maybe you don't deserve someone who actually cared about you, Chichi said. Michael shook his head unfazed. Care? Is that what you call this? After all the lies and deception, you have crossed too many lines for me to recognize you anymore. Whatever love we had died the moment you chose control over trust. And if you think I would just stand by while you hurt Jumoke, you are wrong, Michael said. Chichi clenched her fists, barely holding back her anger. You are a fool, Michael. You think you are clever, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. If you want to stay here, fine, but don't expect me to take your insults in my own house, Chichi said. Michael stared at her unyielding. Oh, I know exactly what you are capable of, Chichi. That is why I'm here. I'm not going anywhere until this is all over. I know you are hiding Jumoke somewhere, Michael said. Chichi coughed, her voice cold. And what proof do you have, Michael? What evidence do you have to accuse me? Michael's tone was firm, his anger rising. Proof or no proof, let me make this clear. If anything happens to Jumoke or my unborn child, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. I will ruin you. I don't care, Michael. Go ahead. I am not afraid of you or your threats, Chichi said. Michael shook his head in disgust. I look at you now and realize I never knew the real you. I was blind, Chichi. Married to a devil in disguise. No wonder you can't have children. You don't have the heart to be a mother, Michael said. Chichi laughed mockingly, her eyes flashing with anger. Is that supposed to hurt me? Keep talking. It won't change anything. With one last look of disgust, Michael turned and walked out of the house. As soon as his car disappeared, Chichi's expression changed. She clenched her jaw, her face twisted in anger. After a few minutes, she picked up her phone and dialed Lolade. Chichi, what's up? Lolade said. Do whatever you want with her. I'm giving you my full support, Lolade. End her. I want her gone for good, Chichi whispered with malice. Don't worry, my friend Chichi. By evening, she will be out of the picture and no one will know. She will be history, Lolade said, laughing wickedly. Fine, and don't call me after it is done. Michael just got home and I don't want him suspecting anything, Chichi said. Got it. Consider it done, Lolade said. Chichi sneered, speaking to herself with twisted satisfaction. It's better to have her gone than let her ruin what I've built with Michael. She will never know happiness, Chichi said. What Chichi didn't realize was that Michael had left a small recording pen on the television stand, capturing their conversation. It was all part of his plan to get her to reveal her intentions. Later that evening, Lolade stood in a dark room of an uncompleted building where Jumoke sat, hands and feet bounded, tears streaming down her cheek. She looked up at Lolade in fear. Please, ma, please let me go. I haven't done anything, Jumoke said, crying. Oh, you haven't done anything. You are the reason Michael is divorcing my best friend. You think you are innocent. You are a home wrecker, Lolade sneered. It is not my fault, Madam Lolade. Chichi lied to Michael before I even came into his life. I didn't do anything wrong, Jumoke said weakly. Shut up! None of that matters. I am doing what I need to do. You should have stayed away, Lolade said, gritting her teeth. You are heartless, Madam Lolade. God will see what you are doing. He will fight for me, Jumoke murmured in despair. Pray all you want, Jumoke. I am about to end this once and for all, Lolade said, chuckling. Lolade raised a knife, stepping toward Jumoke. Suddenly, the room was filled with bright, blinding lights. Lolade froze, shielding her eyes as a figure appeared before her. It was Jumoke's mother spirit. Ah! My eyes! What is this? Lolade screamed, covering her eyes. Back at the house, Michael had taken the recording to the police. The officers listened carefully and began preparing a case. That evening, 2 officers returned to arrest Chichi. I'm innocent. I didn't do anything, Chichi yelled as she was handcuffed. You are going to rot in jail, Chichi. You deserve this, Michael said coldly. You think you have won. I am not the only one going down. Jumoke, she's going down too, Chichi said, laughing madly. The officers confiscated Chichi's phone and traced Lolade's number to the unfinished building. Back at the unfinished building, Lolade was still staggering around, her eyes squeezed shut as she struggled with blindness. Jumoke's mother spirit, full of love, spoke softly. Someone is coming to help you, my daughter. Stay strong. Immediately, her mother disappeared. Meanwhile, Lolade, still blind, stumbled around. Feeling for Jumoke, she picked up stones and tossed them in her direction. "I will get you, Jumoke. Just scream so I will know where to strike," Lolade said angrily, throwing the stones. One stone hit Jumoke on the forehead, causing her to cry out. Lolade raised the knife, but before she could strike, a loud thud echoed through the room. A figure emerged from the shadows and struck Lolade on the back of the head with a heavy stick. Lolade collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Jumoke looked up, her heart pounding, barely believing her eyes. Standing before her was Amaka, her friend. Meanwhile, back in the police van, Michael sat quietly, his face emotionless, while Chichi, handcuffed beside him, glared angrily. She couldn't stop glancing around, knowing her plans were falling apart. Michael stayed focused and determined as they drove through the empty streets. Meanwhile, in the unfinished building, Jumoke caught her breath, fear still in her eyes, but a glimmer of hope began to form. Her heart skipped when she saw Amaka standing over Lolade's unconscious body, holding the stick she had used to knock her out. Jumoke's emotions were a mix of anger, betrayal, and confusion as she stared at Amaka, her former best friend from the university. But as she looked into Amaka's eyes, she pushed aside the resentment. Her survival was what mattered now. Amaka, what are you doing? What are you doing here?" Jumoke asked, her voice trembling. Amaka sighed deeply, her voice soft but sincere. "This is my late father's building, Jumoke. My sister Shalewa and I came to check it before construction starts. I heard a scream and came running. I never expected to find you here." Amaka noticed the rope binding Jumoke's hand and feet. "Who did this to you?" Jumoke, her voice shaking, replied, I was kidnapped." Amaka's eyes widened in shock. She immediately dropped the stick and rushed to untie Jumoke. As she freed her, regret and concern filled her expression. She glanced at Lolade, still unconscious, and quickly used the same rope to bind Lolade's hand and feet. Amaka helped Jumoke to her feet as she tried to regain her breath. Just then, Amaka's sister Shalewa appeared, startled by the screams that had led them into the abandoned building. She froze when she saw Jumoke bruised and shaking. A wave of shame washed over her as she remembered her role setting up Jumoke. The three women stood in silence, the tension thick in the air, until Jumoke broke down into tears. She looked at Amaka and Shalewa, both of whom she had trusted, now standing before her as betrayers and saviors. Shalewa, overwhelmed with guilt, sank to her knees. I am so sorry. I was selfish," Shalewa sobbed. "What I did to you was unforgivable. I set you up with that guy because of my own insecurities. When I saw the video of you confronting Amaka, when I saw the pain I caused you, I felt ashamed. And now, at school, everyone is angry with me. I have never felt so low. I don't expect you to forgive me, but please, know that I am sorry. Please, forgive me." Jumoke wiped her tears. Looking at Shalewa, she was filled with remorse. "It is okay, Shalewa. I am not angry anymore. I forgive you." Amaka, standing silently with a torn expression, suddenly broke down, covering her face with her hands. She stepped toward Jumoke, her voice trembling. Jumoke, I'm sorry too. I should have been there for you. I pushed you away because I couldn't face the truth. I was angry when I found out my sister set you up, and I didn't know how to tell you. I let my pride ruin everything between us. You were my best friend, and I failed you when you needed me the most. Jumoke gently placed a hand on Amaka's shoulder. Her smile small but sad. I already forgave you, Amaka. What is done is done. You saved me today. Both of you, I'm grateful for that. Just then, the police car pulled up and Michael rushed in with the officers. He quickly scanned the scene. Relief washed over him when he saw Jumoke safe, though she was shaking. Meanwhile, Chichi stood there still handcuffed and bruised, glared at Jumoke with fury. How is she still alive? Chichi snorted, glaring at Jumoke. Before she could do anything more, the officers pulled Lolade roughly towards the van. Michael wrapped his arm around Jumoke in a protective hug, his face full of relief. Chichi's expression darkened further, jealousy clear as she watched them. Jumoke gently pulled away from Michael and faced Chichi. I told you, Chichi. I told you nothing would happen to me. I told you Michael would find me. Chichi, furious, clenched her fists. This isn't over, Jumoke. You will pay for this. I swear, you will. As the officer dragged Chichi and Lolade into the van, her glare never left Jumoke. Jumoke turned to Amaka and Shalewa, her face softened with gratitude. Thank you both. Thank you, both of you, for saving my life and for everything else. I forgive you. Meanwhile, back at Mrs. Gladys' house, the tension was palpable as Mr. Afolabi, Iremide, Moju, David and Jomoju anxiously awaited news. The front door opened and Michael stepped in, gently guiding Jumoke by the arms. Relief and joy filled the room as they saw her, but Michael raised his hand to stop them from rushing to her. She needs to rest. She has been through a lot, Michael said. Mrs. Gladys stepped forward, tears in her eyes, and took Jumoke's hand. I'm glad you are safe, Jumoke. Michael smiled and led Jumoke to her room. Later that night, after everyone had gathered, Jumoke recounted what had happened, how Chichi and Lolade had kidnapped her, how they had hurt her, and how terrified and alone she had felt. Her words brought tears to everyone's eyes as they listened to her pain and the strength it had taken her to endure. That night, as Jumoke lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she heard a gentle knock at the door. Michael entered, his face filled with concern. How are you feeling now, Jumoke? He asked. Jumoke turned to him, offering a small smile. I'm okay, Michael. A little tired, but I'll be fine. Michael lowered his gaze, regretful. I am sorry. I should have been there for you. I felt like this is my fault. Jumoke shook her head, reaching out to gently touch his arm. Don't blame yourself, Michael. None of this was your fault. You did everything you could, and I am grateful. There was a brief silence, soft and comforting. Michael finally exhaled, nodding. Thank you, Jumoke. I needed to hear that, he said. He paused, gathering his courage. The divorce papers between me and Chichi, they will be finalized next week. Jumoke nodded. Oh, okay. Michael smiled with hope. One more thing. I wanted to wish you a happy 20th birthday. Jumoke blinked in surprise. Wait, how did you know it is my birthday? Michael chuckled softly, a hint of mystery in his eyes. You will find out tomorrow. He moved closer, his voice lowering. Since you are carrying my child and you just turned 20, let me do this because I think I'm in love with you. With that, he gently tilted her face towards him and kissed her, soft and tender, a moment that felt like a new beginning filled with promise. And with that, they slept off. The next morning, the morning sun shone softly through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the room where Michael and Jumoke slept peacefully, close to each other, enjoying a rare moment of calm. Their faces were relaxed, a sight not often seen in recent times. Mrs. Gladys quietly entered the room and gasped when she saw them together. She closed the door behind her, stepping into the hallway and smiled smiled joyfully. Finally, my son and Jumoke are close now, she whispered, beaming. I knew this would happen. It is so wonderful, she said. By noon, everyone gathered in the living room, ready to take Jumoke out for a special surprise. Michael had planned something that would mean the world to her. At a fancy restaurant, soft music played as they were led to a private section. When Jumoke saw the decorations, flowers, candles, and balloon, her eyes widened in surprise. It was more beautiful than anything she had ever imagined. Michael smiled as he watched her reaction. Jumoke, overwhelmed with emotion, whispered, oh my, this is amazing. I have never been surprised like this before, not even by my parents, Michael. I don't know what to say. Tears filled her eyes as she wiped them away. Just then, Joseph, Michael's younger brother, stepped forward with a gift in hand. His expression was sincere, his voice apologetic. Jumoke, I know I hurt you, and I was part of what went wrong. I set you up, and I can never fully make it up to you. But I want to start by giving you this. I'm truly sorry, he said softly. I hope this is the beginning of making things right. Jumoke hesitated, feeling all the emotions stirring inside her. She walked up and gave Joseph a warm hug. It is okay, Joseph, she whispered. I have let go of everything. What happened in the past, I forgive you. We are moving forward now. Mr. Afolabi then walked over and gently placed his hand on Jumoke's shoulder, his voice filled with love and pride. Jumoke, I will always be here for you. You are my daughter, and I am proud of you. After Michael's ex-wife court case, we will head to Ondo for a fresh start. We will be with you every step of the way. Iremide, seasoned but warm, added, you know, Jumoke, our late mom would be so proud of you. She would love to see you happy like this. Moju joined in, affection in her voice. Exactly. You are strong, brave, and I am proud to call you my sister. We are so proud of you. Moju hugged her tightly, his love clear in his eyes. I love you, Jumoke, more than words can express. Jumoke smiled through her tears, surrounded by the love of her family. Just then, Michael walked over, his eyes full of admiration. You are so strong, Jumoke. I am so proud of you. After everything you have been through, and now you are carrying our first child, I couldn't be happier that it is you. I am glad it is you, Michael said, wiping away a tear from her cheek before giving her a soft kiss. The room gasped in unison. Wow, they murmured. As the joy continued, Mrs. Gladys, Michael's mother, approached Jumoke. Smiling warmly, she embraced her tightly. Jumoke, you have been through so much, and I am proud of you. You have a heart of gold. I only wish Michael had met you first, before that wicked woman Chichi, Mrs. Gladys said, squeezing her hands. Jumoke lowered her gaze shyly, grateful for the support. Mrs. Gladys continued, but at least now, Chichi will face justice. She deserves every bit of it. And I can't wait for Michael to make you his wife. You will bring him joy and peace, unlike the torment Chichi caused. Jumoke felt a wave of gratitude and acceptance. She had never felt so welcomed by someone else's mother. 3 weeks later, the courtroom was filled with anticipation as Chichi and Lolade were brought in handcuffed. The crowd whispered, eager for justice. David, Jumoke's brother, took the stand, his voice steady as he recounted how Chichi had tried to poison Jumoke. Chichi came to me, telling me it would cure my sister's bad character, but I later discovered it was meant to harm her. She was trying to kill my sister out of jealousy, David said firmly. The judge listened attentively. Next, the gateman testified, recalling how he had secretly secretly filmed Chi-Chi mistreating Jumoke, forcing her to eat from a dustbin. When Michael was away, Chi-Chi treated Jumoke horribly. I couldn't stand seeing it anymore, so I filmed it and sent it to Sir Michael. No one deserved that kind of cruelty, the gateman said. As the witnesses spoke, the evidence mounted. Videos, messages, and documents revealed more about Chi-Chi and Lolade's cruel action. The judge's face grew more serious with each revelation. Finally, the judge delivered his verdict. Chi-Chi, for your many crimes, abuse, attempted murder, kidnapping, and the pain you caused, I sentence you to life imprisonment with hard labor. You will spend the rest of your life behind bars, the judge declared. The crowd was silent, murmuring as Chi-Chi's face remained defiant. The judge then turned to Lolade. Lolade, for your involvement in the attempted murder, kidnapping, and harm you caused, I sentence you to 60 years in prison with hard labor. After that, you will be executed by hanging. Lolade's face twisted in fear, tears streaming down her face as the guard took her away. Michael stepped forward, his voice calm. Chi-Chi, may God forgive you. You will finally face the consequences of your actions. And Jumoke, she will be my wife. Chi-Chi scoffed. I hope she dies during childbirth. She won't last long. I will make sure of that. Michael smiled unfazed. Jumoke has survived everything you threw at her. She's stronger than you can ever understand. God never forsake his own. As Chi-Chi was led away, she hissed one last time. Her mother, Mrs. Susan, fell to her knees begging for mercy, but no one listened. After the court section, Mr. Afolabi, Iremide, Moju, David and Jomoju gathered around Jumoke, each giving her a tight hug before they left for Ondo. Their eyes filled with tears as they whispered their love and support. You have been through so much, Jumoke. You have a family that love you. We will always be with you, Mr. Afolabi said. Stay strong. You have a bright future ahead, David added. Jumoke hugged them, feeling both sad and grateful as they left, comforted by their support. 2 months later, Jumoke returned to the university to finish her education. With only 2 years left, she was determined to succeed. She stayed with Mrs. Gladys, who treated her like her own daughter, ensuring she had everything she needed. One evening, as they shared a quiet dinner, Michael walked in with a big smile, excitement in his eyes. Jumoke, come outside with me. I have a surprise for you, he said. Jumoke followed him, her heart racing with curiosity. In the driveway, Michael handed her a car key. Grinning, Jumoke stared at the sleek Benz parked in front of her. Michael, is this really for me? Michael nodded, smiling. Yes, it is yours. You deserve all the happiness. After you have had the baby, I will arrange driving lessons for you. Jumoke was overwhelmed with emotions. She threw her arms around him, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, "Thank you, Michael. Thank you for everything you have done for me." Mrs. Gladys stood in the doorway, beaming with pride. Michael, you couldn't have given her a better gift. Jumoke, you are now part of our family. Jumoke looked at the car, filled with gratitude and joy. She knew this was just the beginning of a bright new chapter, surrounded by love, with a future brighter than what she had ever imagined. Mrs. Gladys continued to care for Jumoke, and the driver took her to school every day. A few months later, Jumoke went into labor, and Michael rushed her to the hospital. After hours of pain and tears, they welcomed a healthy baby boy. Michael and Mrs. Gladys were overjoyed, as was Mr. Afolabi when he received the news. When Jumoke regained her strength, she and Michael stared at their son with love. He's so perfect. Jumoke, he looks just like me. Wow, Michael said tearfully, holding his son. He's our miracle. Michael, our little Teddy. Jumoke said, smiling. Oh, my grandson is so handsome. Thank you, Jumoke. I am so grateful, Mrs. Gladys said. As Jumoke recovered, Mrs. Gladys took care of her and little Teddy, cooking, changing diapers, and showering them with love. Michael continued to spoil her with gifts. Teddy, you are mommy's little angel. Grandma loves you so much, Mrs. Gladys said. 4 years later, Jumoke graduated with the highest honor, MBBS, Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery. Michael was ecstatic. Jumoke began calling Mrs. Gladys mom. Michael, mom, I did it. I'm finally a doctor, Jumoke said tearfully. I always knew you could do it, Jumoke. You are amazing. You are so strong, Michael said proudly. My daughter-in-law, you have made me so proud. We have a doctor in our family, all because of you. Your mother would be so proud of you, Mrs. Gladys said overjoyed. Jumoke began her National Youth Service Corps NYSC program, and soon hospitals were eager to hire her. Michael, I have so many job offers. I don't know which one to pick. Jumoke said, laughing. Choose the best one, my love. You deserve it, Michael said, smiling. 2 months later, Jumoke started working at a prestigious hospital with a generous salary. Michael, I am earning so much. I can finally take care of my family and anyone who needs help, Jumoke said excitedly. You are incredible, Jumoke. I am so grateful to call you my wife, Michael said proudly. With her new income, Jumoke went back to Ondo and renovated the Afolabi's family house. Mr. Afolabi was deeply moved. Jumoke, my daughter, you have brought joy back to our home, Mr. Afolabi said tearfully. Iremide and Moju, now married, visited with their husband and admired Jumoke's accomplishments. Jumoke, you are an inspiration. We are so proud of you, Iremide said, smiling. And Teddy is growing up so fast. He's such a smart boy, Moju said, laughing. Mrs. Gladys continued to spoil Teddy, calling him her little prince. Teddy, Grandma's shining star, you are mommy's little angel. Few weeks later, Michael and Jumoke enjoyed a romantic dinner at a luxurious restaurant. Michael, nervous but determined, had something to ask. Jumoke, from the moment I met you, I knew you were the one. Will you marry me? Michael said, kneeling with a ring in his hand. Yes, Michael, I will marry you. You are the father of our child, my love. Yes, Jumoke said tearfully. Michael placed a diamond ring on her finger, sealing their love with a passionate kiss. 6 months later, Jumoke and Michael's traditional wedding was a vibrant celebration of love and culture. Michael paid her bride price in full, and they also had their white wedding. Mrs. Gladys was overwhelmed with happiness. Finally, Jumoke is officially my daughter-in-law. This is a dream come true, Mrs. Gladys said, overjoyed. Their white wedding followed, filled with elegance and joy, surrounded by family and friends. They exchanged heartfelt vows. I promise to love and cherish you, Michael, forever, Jumoke said, smiling. I promise to love and protect you, Jumoke. My wife, I will never let anything harm you, Michael said. They went to London for their honeymoon. In their hotel room in London, Michael and Jumoke shared another set of vows. As I stand before you tonight, my love, I'm overwhelmed with emotion. You are my rock, my partner, my best friend. I promise to support you, laugh with you, and cry with you. Together, let's build a life full of love and trust. Teddy is a proof of our love, and I will stand by you through everything. I love you more than words can express, Jumoke said as tears filled her eyes. Tonight, I vow to love and cherish you. From the moment I met you, I knew you were special. You have healed my heart and restored my faith in love. I will always protect you, support you, and love you with all my heart. You are my soulmate, and I'm honored to be the father of our precious son, Michael said with teary eye. They shared a deep kiss, their love burning brighter than ever, and they lived a happy life with their son. Moral lesson: patience and support. Life is full of challenges, but with patience, hard work, and support from loved ones, you can overcome anything. Gratitude. Appreciate the love and support you receive from others, and never forget to show your appreciation. Love and commitment. True love is about making sacrifice, keeping promises, and standing by each other no matter what. Hard work pays off. No matter where you start, hard work can lead to success, and you can make a difference in your life and the lives of others. Cherish your loved ones. The people you love, whether family, friends, or a partner, are your biggest treasures. Take care of them and show them love in return. Lastly, always treat people with love and kindness, because you don't know what they are going through. This is the end of our story. Thank you for sticking with us right from the first episode to the last episode. I would like to know what you've learned so far in this story. And don't forget to share this story to your family and loved ones. You might be saving someone who is going through the same thing. Thank you once again for watching this story. See you in our next exciting story. Make sure you have a lovely day. Merry Christmas in advance. Bye.